She was once a bartender in the Bronx, barely making ends meet. Today, she is one of the most talked-about politicians in America. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, better known as AOC, has built a career that sparks debates, ignites political movements, and challenges the status quo. But beyond the fiery speeches, social media battles, and political headlines, who is she when the cameras are off? What does her daily life look like? How does she spend her wealth? And what does her lifestyle say about the values she claims to uphold? For years, AOC has positioned herself as a champion of the working class. She speaks about income inequality, fights for labor rights, and promotes progressive policies. But as she climbed the political ladder, her financial reality changed. Her world has transformed from earning a modest income as a server to receiving a six-figure congressional salary. Yet, she insists that her net worth remains modest. Is that true? And if so, why hasn't she capitalized on the wealth-building opportunities that many politicians before her have taken advantage of? Her real estate choices also tell an interesting story. While some lawmakers buy multi-million-dollar estates, AOC has kept a relatively low-profile lifestyle, at least on paper. But is there more to the story? What about her home in New York? And what about her life in Washington, D.C.? She has spoken passionately about economic justice, but do her financial decisions reflect her words? Beyond her career and finances, there is also the question of her personal life. Who stands beside her through it all? Her longtime partner, Riley Roberts, has been by her side since her college years, but unlike the glamorous relationships of other high-profile politicians, their love story remains almost invisible to the public. Why is that? What do we know about the man who shares her life, and how does their relationship fit into the bigger picture of AOC's private world? There's also the question of her hobbies, her interests, and how she spends her free time. We know she's a devoted Yankees fan. We know she named her dog after an art movement. But beyond the political rallies and policy battles, what kind of life does she lead? And then there's the Tesla, a car that made headlines not because it was expensive, but because of what it represented. AOC is a champion of labor rights, yet she bought a vehicle from a company known for its anti-union stance. The decision stirred controversy. Was it a simple mistake, or did it expose a contradiction in her values? Every politician's lifestyle tells a story. The way they live, the things they buy, and the choices they make behind closed doors, these details reveal more than any speech ever could. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has spent years fighting against the establishment, but now she is part of the very system she once opposed. So, who is she today? A fearless advocate, a political icon, or a leader struggling to balance her beliefs with the realities of power? To truly understand AOC, we have to go beyond the headlines. We have to step into her world, examine her choices, and uncover the life she rarely speaks about. But before we dive into her luxurious residence and car collection, let's rewind to her humble beginnings. Before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became a household name, she was just another young woman trying to survive in New York City. She worked long hours as a bartender and server at a taco shop in Union Square, making just enough to cover rent and student loan payments. Her days were exhausting, her nights even longer. She had a degree in international relations from Boston University, but opportunities were scarce. While some of her peers secured high-paying jobs after graduation, she took on shifts at restaurants earning around $27,000 a year. The struggle was real, but so was her ambition. She knew she wanted more. Then, in 2016, something changed. The political landscape was shifting, and so was her mindset. She volunteered for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign and saw firsthand the power of grassroots organizing. She traveled to communities devastated by economic and environmental crises, and the experience opened her eyes to the deep inequalities in America. But at the time, she had no idea that in just 2 years, she would go from working behind a bar to standing on the House floor in Washington, D.C. In April 2017, while still working at the taco shop, she made a bold decision. She would run for Congress. It seemed impossible. She had no political experience, no wealthy donors, and no major party backing. She was going up against Joe Crowley, a powerful 10-term incumbent who hadn't faced a primary challenger in over a decade. People told her it couldn't be done. But that only fueled her determination. She didn't have millions to spend on TV ads or billboards, but she had something even more powerful: people. AOC ran a grassroots campaign like no other. She knocked on doors, spoke to voters directly, and built a movement fueled by small donations and volunteers. She refused corporate money, promising to represent working-class people, not wealthy elites. Her team ran on a tight budget, and at times she struggled to afford transportation to campaign events. But her message resonated. She was young, fearless, and unapologetic about her progressive vision. As Election Day approached, her opponent barely took her seriously. Crowley had the money, the connections, and the backing of the Democratic establishment. What he didn't have was the energy of a people-popular movement. On June 26, 2018, everything changed. Against all odds, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez won the Democratic primary in New York's 14th congressional district. It was a political earthquake. She didn't just win, she crushed Crowley with 57% of the vote. The media erupted. Headlines called it the biggest upset of the 2018 midterms. She had done what no one thought possible. In January 2019, she was sworn into Congress, making history as the youngest woman ever elected. With that came a massive salary jump from $27,000 a year to $174,000. Overnight, she went from struggling to make ends meet to financial stability. But despite the pay increase, AOC remained vocal about her working-class roots. She still spoke about student debt, rent struggles, and economic inequality. The question was, did her financial reality still match her message? But despite her rapid rise, how much has her net worth changed? Money and power often go hand in hand in Washington. Politicians rise through the ranks, and with that rise, their bank accounts swell. But Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's financial story is different. Despite her high-profile career and six-figure congressional salary, her reported net worth remains under $500,000. That's a small number compared to many of her colleagues, who accumulate wealth through book deals, investments, and lucrative speaking engagements. But is this a conscious choice, a reflection of her working-class roots, or simply the result of her financial habits? When she entered Congress in 2019, AOC carried significant student loan debt, around $50,000. Unlike some lawmakers who come from generational wealth, she had no financial safety net. For years, she lived paycheck to paycheck, navigating the same economic struggles as millions of Americans. But when she started earning $174,000 a year as a congresswoman, the public expected her financial situation to change. Some assumed she would invest, build wealth, and climb the economic ladder like so many before her. But to this day, there's no record of her owning stocks, properties, or any major financial assets outside of basic savings and retirement accounts. Her financial disclosures show no undisclosed business ventures, no secret trust funds, and no real estate empire. This is rare in Washington, where politicians often use their influence to secure high-paying board positions or lucrative consulting deals. Compared to her peers, AOC's financial choices stand out. Some members of Congress, even those who started with modest means, have seen their net worths skyrocket during their time in office. But AOC's financial records remain largely unchanged. Critics argue that she could be making smarter financial moves, while supporters say she's staying true to her principles by refusing to engage in wealth-building tactics that disconnect her from the people she represents. But how does she spend her money? With a high cost of living in Washington, D.C. and New York, her salary doesn't stretch as far as one might think. She rents her apartment, pays off her remaining student debt, and covers day-to-day expenses. A large portion of her income also goes towards supporting grassroots efforts, campaign donations, and charitable causes. She's known for funding progressive initiatives and backing candidates who align with her movement. While some politicians build wealth through their campaigns, AOC appears to funnel much of her political fundraising back into the causes she champions. Yet, this financial reality comes with its own set of challenges. Living with a relatively modest net worth while maintaining a massive public image requires careful balance. Unlike many of her wealthier colleagues, she does not have the financial cushion to fall back on if she ever leaves politics. This raises an important question. How does she navigate life in the public eye while maintaining financial stability? But how does she balance her financial realities with a growing public image? A home says a lot about a person. For Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, her living spaces reflect her values: modest, practical, and deeply connected to the communities she represents. Unlike many politicians who invest in sprawling estates, AOC has kept her real estate choices simple. No luxury mansions, no private compounds, just a Bronx apartment and a Washington, D.C. rental. But is there more to the story? In New York, she has always remained close to her roots. Her apartment in the Bronx isn't in a high-rise luxury building or a gated community. It's an ordinary home in a working-class neighborhood, much like the one she grew up in. For someone who built her political career on being a voice for the people, this living choice sends a message that she's not distancing herself from the struggles of everyday New Yorkers. She still walks the same streets, shops at the same stores, and stays in touch with the community that elected her. While some critics expected her to upgrade to a high-profile residence after gaining national fame, she's held onto a simpler lifestyle, at least when it comes to her home. One of the most symbolic real estate moments in AOC's life came in 2023, when the small home where she launched her political career went up for sale. Located in the Bronx, this house wasn't a lavish property by any means. It sold for just $250,000, an amount that seems small compared to New York's skyrocketing housing market. But for AOC, this house represented something much bigger. It was here that she planned her grassroots campaign, where she worked late into the night strategizing ways to take down a powerful political incumbent. It was the birthplace of one of the most shocking victories in modern U.S. politics. When the house was put on the market, it wasn't just real estate, it was a piece of history. The modest selling price stood as a reminder that AOC's campaign didn't come from wealth or privilege. It came from a place of struggle, ambition, and relentless belief in change. When she's not in New York, AOC spends most of her time in Washington, D.C., where she rents an apartment. Unlike many lawmakers who purchase homes in the capital or stay in upscale residences, she has kept her living arrangements relatively simple. She once shared in an interview that she struggled to find affordable housing in D.C. before her congressional salary kicked in. Her choice to rent instead of buy fits her political stance, avoiding personal wealth building through real estate while advocating for affordable housing policies. The cost of living in D.C. is high, but she's opted for practicality over luxury. Every home she has lived in tells a story. They reflect her belief in staying connected to the people who elected her, avoiding the trappings of wealth, and living by the very principles she speaks about. While many politicians build their wealth through real estate investments, AOC's approach is different. She doesn't own any lavish properties, and she hasn't cashed in on her fame to live a more extravagant lifestyle. And just as she's strategic with her home, her car choice tells a deeper story. In 2020, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez made a decision that on the surface seemed simple. She bought a Tesla Model 3. For many, it was a logical choice. The Tesla was one of the few electric vehicles on the market with enough range to make the long drives between New York and Washington, D.C. without frequent charging stops. As a vocal advocate for climate action, her purchase of an electric vehicle aligned with her push for a greener future. But what seemed like a personal decision quickly turned into a political controversy. AOC has built her platform on supporting labor rights, pushing for worker protections, and standing with unions. Yet Tesla, owned by billionaire Elon Musk, has been criticized for its anti-union policies. Many progressives questioned why she would choose a Tesla when other union-made electric vehicles were available. Critics argued that this choice clashed with her stance on supporting American workers. If she was serious about labor rights, why not opt for a model from a company that supports unionized labor? Was it a mistake, or was there more to the story? The backlash came fast. Some accused her of hypocrisy, arguing that a lawmaker who fights for union workers shouldn't support a company with a history of labor disputes. Others saw it as a non-issue, pointing out that Tesla was still an electric car and her primary goal was reducing carbon emissions. Still, the debate exposed a deeper question. When does personal convenience outweigh political principles? AOC defended her choice, stating that at the time, few electric vehicles met the specific needs of long-distance travel between her two work locations. The Tesla Model 3 was one of the few that could make the trip efficiently. But the controversy didn't go away. It became part of a larger discussion about political branding, personal choices, and how leaders must navigate the expectations placed on them. Was this just a practical purchase, or was it a statement? AOC has positioned herself as an outsider in Washington, someone who doesn't play by traditional political rules. But with a growing public profile and increased scrutiny, every decision she makes is analyzed. The Tesla incident was just one example of how even a car purchase can turn into a political debate. Beyond material things, AOC is also shaping communities through philanthropy. When disaster strikes, true leaders step up. In February 2021, Texas was hit by one of the worst winter storms in its history. Millions were left without power, homes were destroyed, and families struggled to find food and clean water. While state officials debated the crisis, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez took action. She launched a fundraising campaign that quickly gained momentum, raising an astonishing $5 million in just a few days. The money went directly to organizations providing emergency relief, including food banks and community shelters. For many Texans, AOC, who wasn't even their representative, was more present in their time of need than some of their leaders. But her commitment to helping communities goes beyond one emergency. As a representative of New York's 14th congressional district, she has fought to bring real change to her constituents. In the fiscal year 2024, she secured over $12 million in federal funding for local projects. This money has been used to improve community centers, expand educational programs, and enhance street safety. These investments have given residents access to resources they never had before, from job training to mental health support. To some, these efforts show that she is more than just a politician. She is an activist who follows through on her promises. However, AOC's impact isn't just measured in dollars. Her advocacy work has brought national attention to issues affecting marginalized communities. She has fought for better housing conditions, fair wages, and healthcare access for lower-income families. Her ability to use her platform to amplify these concerns has forced discussions that many lawmakers once ignored. For some, she is a voice for the unheard, a representative who truly understands the struggles of everyday Americans. Yet not everyone sees her activism in the same light. Critics argue that her fundraising and public efforts are more about building her brand than creating lasting change. They claim that while she is skilled at using social media to rally support, her actual policy achievements fall short. Others believe she is too focused on national issues and not doing enough for the people in her district. The debate over whether her activism is genuine or political strategy continues, but one thing is certain: AOC knows how to mobilize people. Her influence reaches far beyond Congress. Whether it's raising millions for disaster relief or pushing for progressive policies, she has proven that she can make an impact. But behind the public persona, who is Alexandria Ocasio Cortez when the cameras are off? But what about her personal life? Let's meet the man by her side. Love and politics rarely mix well in the public eye, but for Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, her relationship with Riley Roberts has remained one of the few constants in her rapidly changing world. While she became one of the most recognizable figures in American politics, Roberts stayed in the background, rarely seen, rarely heard, yet always there. Their love story isn't one of power and fame, but of quiet, steady support. They first met in college at Boston University, long before AOC became a political force. Both were involved in student discussions, often debating ideas at a weekly campus event. Roberts, a web developer with a passion for technology and entrepreneurship, wasn't drawn to the spotlight the way AOC was, but their connection was undeniable. Their relationship grew over time, marked by intellectual conversations, shared values, and a deep mutual understanding. But after graduation, life pulled them in different directions. For a while, they went their separate ways. Years later, their paths crossed again, and this time they stayed together. As AOC launched her underdog campaign for Congress in 2018, Roberts was there not as a strategist, not as an advisor, but as a quiet pillar of support. While other political couples made public appearances together, posed for photo ops, or attended high-profile events, AOC and Roberts chose the opposite. He rarely appeared in interviews, rarely spoke about their relationship, and maintained a private life away from the media frenzy. In a world where politicians' personal lives are often scrutinized, this choice was intentional. Then, in April 2022, after years of keeping their relationship out of the public eye, AOC announced their engagement. The proposal happened in Puerto Rico, away from cameras and political chaos. It wasn't a grand event designed for headlines. It was personal, intimate, and in a place that held deep cultural significance for AOC. But even after the engagement, little changed in how they presented themselves to the world. Roberts remained behind the scenes, continuing his work in digital marketing, while AOC took on the political battles of the day. So who is Riley Roberts in this story? Is he just a silent partner, content with staying out of the frame? Or is his role more important than it seems? While he may not be in the public eye, those close to AOC describe him as a key figure in her life, someone who has been there through the toughest moments, offering emotional and intellectual support. Some say his presence keeps her grounded amid the chaos of Washington. While her love life stays quiet, her bold political stances make headlines daily. Few politicians spark as much debate as Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. She is either seen as a fearless advocate for justice or a divisive figure pushing the boundaries of political discourse. Over the years, her statements and actions have ignited controversy, drawing both fierce criticism and passionate support. From immigration policies to international conflicts, from refusing to attend a presidential inauguration to challenging her party, AOC has never shied away from bold positions. But are these moments a sign of true conviction, or do they fuel the very polarization she claims to fight against? One of her earliest and most debated statements came in 2019, when she compared U.S. immigration detention centers